In this video, we will show you how to replace your starter assembly on this Ford Fusion with a 3.0 liter engine. This will be located along the driver's side of your engine. Let's get into it. Okay friend, let's get started on our job. The first thing we'll have to do is remove the battery. To remove the battery, we're going to start by disconnecting the negative battery terminal first. Use an 8mm. Loosen this mounting nut just enough that you can remove the terminal end from the battery. A quick inspection will set that aside. Now that that's out of the way, let's continue on to the positive battery terminal. Remove the protective cover. At this point, you're going to find that you have a wire that's held in place with a 10mm mounting nut. Remove that mounting nut. Remove the wire. Quick inspection, set that aside. Now we'll use our 8mm to loosen this mounting nut. When you go to remove this, you may find that it's a little bit of a stretch to try to pull it out of place. Now we can remove this upper bracket. You'll find that it's held in place with two 10mm pieces of hardware. There's a 10mm bolt on this side and a 10mm nut on the other. Once you have the nut end loose, you typically can lift the hooked end up and out of place. At this point, we'll take hold of the battery and remove it from the vehicle. Now that we have the battery out of the way, we'll continue on to removing the battery tray. To remove the battery tray, you're going to find that you have several tabs that hold wiring harnesses in position. Use a trim tool or small prying device and just go ahead and pop each one of those areas free. Now that I've completed the forward side here, I'm going to make my way to the inboard side. For this, we won't be continuing with a prying device. We'll have to use an angled pick. If you were to take hold of the wiring harness, you will find that it does have some movement. It pulls away from the tray, but it doesn't really come away too far. If you were to carefully put your fingers down along this area, directly below the master cylinder, you're going to find a bumped out notch. That's actually a small lock. You want to use your angled pick, make your way in between that lock, gently pry it apart, and pull the wiring away from the battery tray. It's pretty much impossible to see. You're just going to have to go by feel. There we are. There's the rearward side of this. Now I'll have to follow it forward. This one's a little bit harder to gain access to, but it's pretty much the same process. Just get your angled pick inside there and separate the area. With all of the wiring separated from the battery tray, we'll continue on to its two 10mm headed mounting points. You'll find a 10mm headed nut out in the open, and the 10mm headed bolt will be down inside this small hole. Take hold of your battery tray and remove it from the vehicle. Now that we have that out of the way, we have a clear view of where the starter is located. Let's continue on to disconnecting our two wiring harnesses from this area. For the bottom wiring harness, we'll be using a 10mm. Remove the nut, give the wiring a quick inspection, and then set it aside. Have a quick look at that wiring, make sure it doesn't look like it's damaged, corroded. We'll set that wiring aside for now. We will clean it before we continue with the installation of it. Continue on to the next wiring harness. For this one, we'll be using a 13mm. Quick inspection of that wiring as well. We'll set it aside. The next thing we'll do is move along to removing our 2 mounting bolts that hold the starter in place. They're pretty much directly along the top of the starter. One's a little bit hard to get to along the front area there. The other one's pretty much out in the open along the back side. To remove each one of these mounting bolts, we'll be using a swivel-headed 13mm. Bring this down through here. Now we'll make our way to the rearward mounting bolt. For this one, we'll be making our way down along the EGR valve and the EGR tube. Once you have both of the bolts that hold the starter in position, continue on by prying this up and out of place. Take hold of the starter and remove it from the engine compartment. There it is, friend. Now that you have the starter out of there, the next thing you want to do is continue on to cleaning and inspecting the mounting area. It's common to have dirt or debris in this area. Now that we've cleaned that mounting point, let's continue on to each of our 2 starter wires. We'll use some fine sandpaper for this. We'll just make sure that there's no corrosion or rust on the mounting points. We want to have good contact. There we go, both sides of that first wire. We'll do this larger wire as well. Once you have that done, the next thing you will want to do is clean and inspect your mounting hardware. Okay friends, let's get ready for the installation of our brand new starter. Before we install it, go ahead and remove the mounting nuts and locking washers from the assembly. Now we can prepare to install the starter assembly into the vehicle. While doing so, pay attention along the base here. You will find that it has 2 small locating pitons that protrude out. Looking into the transmission, you're going to find that you have 2 holes for them to fit into. There we go. Let's start putting in each of our mounting bolts. You want to make sure you start both of them in before you tighten either of them. Now it's time for the front bolt. For this, I'll be starting it in with a magnet. It's easier to reach that way. Just make my way right through this hole here. Once it's snug, you can torque it to 20 foot-pounds. Let's do the same to the other bolt. Now that we have that torqued into place, let's continue on with each of our wires. Starting with the smaller of the wires, we'll slide that into place onto the starter. Once you've slid that on there, continue on with your locking washer and then the nut. Once you feel as though you have it in the proper placement, continue on to snugging it up and then torquing it to 44 inch-pounds. Now let's do the same to the larger of the two wires. Go ahead and take that and put it in place, making sure that it fits directly against the base of the starter. Continue on with the large washer, the locking washer, and then the mounting nut. Snug this nut and then torque it to 106 inch-pounds. Make sure you protect this area with its protective boot. Continue on with your battery tray. When installing this, we want to be paying attention to the tabs that protrude out towards the inboard side. They will fit into their corresponding slots that had those locking tabs. Aside from that, we will also have to align our mounting stud and mounting bolt holes. Try to get the wiring in place here before we go too far. Let's align the stud. Let's start securing the wiring across the front area of this panel. Just press that into position as we make our way across. Now it's time to install the battery. We'll carefully put this in place. Once we've done so, we can continue on with our upper mount making its way across. We will have to put the hook in along the inboard side there. Let's get this into the proper position here. Let's snug it up. Start with the outboard side, make your way on the inside. This is the adjustment point. You really only want to tighten this down enough that the battery cannot move around. You don't need to over tighten it and potentially damage your battery in any way. Continue on with your positive battery terminal. We'll take this and slide it into place. Use your 8mm wrench and make sure this is nice and tight. Continue on to your positive battery cable. Put on your protective cover. Move along to your negative battery terminal. Press that as far as you can onto the battery. Continue on with snugging that down. Okay friend, we finished installing our starter on the vehicle. At this point, hop in the passenger compartment, start up the vehicle a couple of times. We're testing the functionality. Once you're sure everything functions as it should, go ahead and close the hood and then take your vehicle for a road test. Thanks for watching.
When only the best will do, demand TRQ. The only company that lets you view before you do. TRQ is committed to offering the highest quality aftermarket auto parts that are engineered for peace of mind. Thanks for using and viewing with TRQ.